Okay, we're going to do a walkthrough on the project launcher. We just did some massive updates that greatly improved the whole process. I think you're really going to appreciate the improvements that we made. If you're brand new, it's all going to be fresh to you, but if you've been using this for the past month, and I appreciate all the users that we have on here, I've received some great feedback from you, and a lot of what the changes have come from the feedback you guys have given me. And one of the big picture that why we did these improvements is there's a huge weakness or flaw to the architect builder system that I was showing you. And where we have the architect as a large language model project, like in Claude Chat or in ChatGPT. And then you've got the builder in one of the coding agents, Claude Code or Codex, for example. And that part is still true. But what I'm proposing now, and I'm saying the better way to do this, is move your architect into the coding agent and it has its own separate role. It'll make sense when I show you how this works. And I spent a lot of time getting the instructions and the personality of the architect into a role automatically. It's going to be less painful for you, less cutting and pasting, less trying to think, okay, who's the architect? What's the builder? The back and forth. And we keep it inside that coding agent with different roles. Architect still does the architect, not writing code. It's there to be the eyes and ears and extracting the vision and the dream. The builder still does what it's supposed to do, executing off of specific drawings or drawings, detailed instructions and plans from the architect. And the reason for this separation is because it creates this disciplined file folder structure, which is the heart of the architect builder process, the 120x process. That historical knowledge is what allows you to create some amazing thing. You can build anything that you want, and you've got that discipline and that history and that context, and you can use different tools. It's tool agnostic. It's because of that file folder system. Well, the problem is with the architect, it's blind. It can only communicate one way. And so it's up to you as the kind of middleman to, when the builder is done with his sprint, to communicate back to the architect what has happened, because the architect can't see your file folder structure, can't see the real-time updates. You have to communicate it. And that is a real flaw in the architect builder process. By moving the architect into the coding agent, now it has eyes and it can communicate. And it's a lot cleaner, it's a lot more robust, and you spend less time trying to communicate context to your architect. Because if you let it go, and some people have said this, and I've experienced it too, I just have been doing this for 3 years, and knowing it's easier for me to get the context. But some people say, my architect is drifting. So these improvements eliminates that, and I really think you'll appreciate them. So when you start the project launcher, the first thing you open up is this start page. The walkthrough video that you're watching right now is recording what will be here. How it works will take you to the admin page or the how-to page. I'll talk about that in a minute. But really what we're doing is starting a new project. When we start a new project and you click on here, it's going to take you to this intake form. Now, really the first step is outside of the project launcher. I highly encourage, if you're going to create an or a workflow or whatever you're going to create, that you do a brainstorming session long before you engage the project launcher. So much value comes out of a free-flowing brainstorming session to get alignment and clarity about what you want to build and why. And once you get that alignment around what you want to build and why in this brainstorming session, then you can come here and you can extract that information from that brainstorming and get this kind of lengthy intake form filled out really easily. You don't have to. You can sit here and type what's the business problem, what are the users and their roles, the current workflow. The more robust that you can make this, the more robust your architect initial conversation is going to be. And if you have trouble filling this out, the architect will extract it from you when you have that initial conversation in your first architect. So either way, there's a safety valve, but I like to get this filled out as robust as possible, right? And one of the best ways to do that is have a conversation outside of the project launcher and then extract it. By using this optional step right here, when you open it up and you follow the instructions, it says copy this prompt and go take it to your conversation in your large language model and try to extract it so it can fill out this intake form. Because this intake form is what populates your detailed folder structure, which is the heart of this method and process. This is why we do this. This is why you got the launcher, to make this as easy as possible. So I'm going to copy this prompt, and I do have a conversation that I had for a client in Claude Chat. It could be ChatGPT, it could be Gemini, whatever. And this is me attaching some spreadsheets and Word documents and an email transcript of a conversation that I had with this client. And this is everything you see here is me trying to get alignment and clarity about what I want to build for this guy and how I can help this out. And once I get that, I say, you know what? Let's start building this thing. I'm going to get the project launcher. I'm going to paste that prompt in here, and the prompt is going to extract the information from this robust conversation and get it in the format, in this markdown format that I can paste into the project launcher to fill out that intake form as painlessly as possible, and it makes it fairly robust, assuming that your brainstorming conversation was fairly thorough. And so you can see it's getting it in this markdown format. And once it's done, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back to the project launcher. And again, this is this optional step up in here. And I'm going to paste that output into this box. I can upload a markdown file if I want to here in that same format, and I can pre-fill the form, and you can see all of the 18 fields are filled out fairly detailed. I can add to it if I see fit. There's nothing stopping me. And again, if I leave something blank, not a big deal. The architect will extract that information from you in a conversation in the first chat. So look, everything's filled out. The one thing I'm gonna do is, who's this app for? There's 3 options here: micro, internal, external. All this does is it allows you, depending on how detailed and thorough and robust the coding is going to be. If it's a micro app, you're doing something simple for yourself, you want to do fairly quick. It's going to be different if you're doing a large enterprise level project where a lot more of the factors are involved. So that's what it's here for. I'm going to pick internal users for something I'm going to build for my company. And then I can create the architect workspace. And when I create this space, it creates a project called PFE MD&A Automation Tool. You can go to your projects and you can see that it's listed right there. All your projects are listed. I can open that project back up, take me back to that same spot. These 2 windows are it's all the intake stuff that we just filled in. You can go edit that if you need to and go back and regenerate this again. But essentially that generation created this download zip folder, which is the most important piece, one of the most important pieces of this project launcher. This is what you paid Project Launcher to do to fill this out. So it says right here to save the generated folder. So I'm going to download this zip, download it to my hard drive. I'm going to unzip it and open this file up, and you can see that it's unzipped here, and it's in that builder 120x builder architect builder method. It's got all of these kind of markdown files, and everything's ready to go to get filled in by the architect and builder process. And so your goal here now is to get this folder into your desktop or onto your computer. In this case, I have a folder called 120x on my hard drive, and I got a folder called builds where I can put all my builds. I'm going to drag this unzipped folder and put it into my builds folder, and it's there ready for me to start communicating and writing code to. So once we got that in there, it says here the next thing we want to do is run the architect from the folder. This is the big change that we wanted to do. Before, I had you setting up a project in Claude Chat or in ChatGPT, and we're dragging markdown files and custom instructions. All of that now is automatic. And if you're using Claude Code, it's really beneficial because all you have to do is open up a session in Claude Code and run /architect. If you're using Codex, you have to copy this prompt. You don't have a / command in there, but it's the same thing. You just copy this prompt and start your conversation in Codex. I'll show you here in Claude. If I start a session in Claude Code, I'm going to start a new session, and then I need to navigate to my new folder that I just put onto my computer. So in this case, I'm going to open the folder, and I'm going to go to my builds, and then there's my brand new project, PFE MD&A Automation, and I'm going to set that folder so that my Claude Code is building inside of there. And now watch this. All I have to do is hit /architect. See how it puts it in there? I'm going to hit enter, and now it's taking all those detailed instructions. It's ingesting the architect builder method. It's reading all of the documents. It's getting the instructions. It's reading that specific input that you put in that input form, and it's going to start a conversation with you. And notice how it read all of these things. It read all the instructions, and look, and it tells me like, hey, Ray, here's the lay of the land before where it stands. Here's the CFO. Here's what it is, what we're deciding today. So it's starting this conversation with you. And notice if you've done this the old way, notice how much simpler this is, right? It's saying, hey, I got everything set up. And it says two things before we go. The source files aren't in the actual folder yet, which I didn't do. So I'm going to have to upload these. A rigor mismatch, I want your blessing to correct. And so we just answer these questions. And so how much better is this, right? And we didn't upload any folders, upload files. And it's just an automatic by hitting /architect. Now, the other thing that I would do here is this session is ungrouped. I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to go ahead and this is my technique. You can do whatever you want. Architect, and I'm going to say this is for pack 001. You can call it whatever you want. And then I'm going to group this. And so I'm going to move to group. I'm going to create a new group, and we'll call it the PFE, MD, and A. That's my project, and we'll save it. And now I've got it set up in there, and I've got my architect. So let me show you how we do it in ChatGPT. Same thing, or I'm saying Codex. So same thing, run the architect from the folder. If you're using Codex or another coding tool, maybe you're using Antigravity, or maybe you're using Cursor, or maybe you're using something else that you don't have this /architect. So all I would do is I would copy this file, and let's go into Codex, and same thing, we want to navigate a new session. We want to navigate to a new project at an existing folder, and we will go here, and I'll go to 120X, I'll go to builds, and there's my folder. I open in there, and now I don't have a / command, but I just paste that prompt in there, and it's essentially going to do the same thing. And while that's cooking over here, notice in Codex a little different. It did create a project in here called this, and then I will rename this chat, same thing, technique, architect. We'll call it pack 001. And the reason why I call it packs is because that's the job of the architect, is to create the architect packs, right? And so now I'm in here. And so notice in Codex, it's going to ask me the same questions. Hey, what are the versions? Where are the documents? Everything else. And so I would just answer the questions and go on from there. I'll go back to Codex Claude Code and show the example. I went ahead in the folder structure in a folder called Client Docs. I went ahead and put all the client docs in there for Claude Code. I want to answer these questions. How much does a tool need to write versus assemble? I'm just going to pick the first one. Can we get the real source files? I say yes. I put them in, what was that folder called? References /client docs /client docs. And then the next question he's asking, confirm I should plan this as a single user tool. Yes, local personal tool. And then we start the conversation with the architect. So at some point after it does all its reading and analyzing and asking my questions, it's going to say, hey, as a gate, when you're ready, say generate the pack. I'm going to tell it to generate the pack, and then it will write the pack. So eventually, after a few while, it's going to write the architect pack. And so remember, the first job of the architect, or the primary job, is to create these architect packs. And you can view it within your coding tool. You can see that it's all right here, all the details for architect pack 001. Also, because you're putting it in this coding agent, it's going to write it directly to the folders. If I look at my folder structure and I go to my planning documents, I go to architect packs, it's sitting right there, all ready to go. The coding agent wrote it there. Doing it in the old way, you'd have to manually put it in there. So this is a definite improvement. So then next, we're ready for the build piece of it. It even says so right here. Let me get this out of the way. It even says when you're ready, this applies it for real. Start the builder session / build to implement sprint 001. So in the same coding agent, I'm not going back and forth. I have a session here. I'm going to do a new session. I'm going to make sure I'm in the right folder, which I am right there. And all I got to do in using Claude Code is hit /build and hit enter. And I'm going to, while it's cooking over here, I'm going to rename this. This is my technique. I'm going to call it builder. And then we'll call this sprint 001. And then I'm going to move this to the group that I created, PFE, MD&A. And now you see right there, I've got my two architect and builder to go back and forth all underneath Claude Code. If I was going to do this in Codex, same thing. If I go here back to the project launcher, it says to build it, do /build in Claude Code. If it's in Codex or anything else, I would come into here and I would go into Codex and I would start a new chat and I would make sure I'm in my right folder structure, and then I would just paste that prompt that we had in there. Again, I haven't written the architect pack yet, so it's going to be a little off. And then I'd rename this chat over here. I would call it builder. This is my technique, sprint 001, and we'll save it. And you look over here and you can see it under my project over here. I've got the builder and I've got the architect, and so I can go back for all underneath the same, right? And they both have unique roles. One's going to not write code, one is going to write code, and they can both see your folder structure. So I'm going to go back to Claude Code, and you can see that it's executing the current sprint folder. And remember before, it's going to do the dry run, it's going to do the application, and then it's going to give us a plan that we're going to give back to the builder for approval. And so when that happens, I will unpause it. And now you can see that the builder has come up with its plan, says what I'm building, here's what I'm going to do, all this here, and then it says, may I proceed to write this code? I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I'm going to go back to my architect. Again, I'm in the same agent, but I'm just going to go back here. I'm going to say, here is the builder's plan. And then get the second opinion of the architect to see what it says. And you can see the architect said, hey, it's approved. The plan is sound. He's telling us to go. Nothing for you to copy. Just proceed. I'm going to go back to the builder. Sometimes they'll give you a prompt to give back if there's changes, but I'm just going to type approved. And the builder is going to go all the way and start writing the code, updating it from here. While that code is getting written by our builder, I'm going to show you some other improvements. What is really cool about the project launcher is this mission control over here. This is the ability to connect inside of this. Now you got to use a Chromium browser. It's got to be Google Chrome, Brave, or Edge that runs on the Chromium platform. It's not going to work on Safari, but if you use Google Chrome, you can hit or connect to your project folder, and a window is going to come up and say, what do you want to connect it to? And I'm going to go find my builds, and let's connect that project that we're working on right now, that PFE MDA, and I'm going to connect it right there at the root and select it. It says allow to visit and copy files. Yep, it's all read-only, so you don't have any worry about this. And this shows you where you're at and what's next. And not only that, is that you can read the folder structure. I'll move over here, but you can look at the current folder structure that is replicated on your desktop. And so you can even see, like right here, you can open up the planning folder. I can look at the architect packs. I can read architect pack 001 here in the project launcher. So this is a great way, particularly for those that are using PCs where reading those markdown documents is a little difficult. But also here, it tells you where you're at in the process. It says the builder is working. That's right. Your builder implements a sprint, so it knows what sprint you're on, and it shows you what is next in your coding tool, run build /build, which is what we did. And so that is, to me, is a cool setup. Also, inside of this mission control, as we make updates to, so say you started working on a project 3 weeks ago in the old architect builder method, and I've made improvements to the architect builder method. I've added instructions. It's going to tell you if your project is out of date. And so let's go for example, here I'm going to change folders. So I'll go to builds and let me pick this folder that I worked on a week or so ago. And I know it doesn't have the latest updates because I just did today. So I select that one. And notice right here, it says your 120x method has improvements, your architect. So this will bring my folder structure. It'll write to my folder structure the updated improvements that I've made to the architect builder method, everything else. So I update my method files and it shows you what's going to get replaced. And again, there's none of your project files or anything. These are all specific to the architect builder method. So it's not going to touch anything that's specific for your project. It's just going to update all the important things and even add. And so we want to save the changes. Yes. And now I'm up to speed. My project's up to speed. And so this is important because if I make improvements to the architect builder method and you're using an old project and you don't have the latest, this can bring everything up to speed. So that is what that is for. And so I'm going to change this folder back to the current project that we're working on and select in there. And anyway, we'll go back to code. It said sprint 001 build. He's writing the package file, so it's still working. I'll come back here when we're done. Okay, and eventually he's going to finish his sprint. I cut him short on this because we're doing it for the demo, but he said it's pretty much everything's built for, everything's done. I can go get a second opinion on this. I can copy this and take it back to the architect. Again, this is my technique, and say, hey, look, he says he is done, and I can paste the output here. And again, the nice thing is I got everything under the same coding agent, so it's just a little back and forth based on my demos. He says 1 30-second sanity check, and then I will let you know when he's done here. Okay, the architect says sprint 001 is closed. The builder says sprint 001 is closed, and he says next is sprint 002. So how do you get to the next sprint? So I always do a new unique conversation for each builder. We can do the same with the architect. I want to say, hey, good. Let's close this out. And he already, notice up here, he updated what they call the architect briefing. We can go back to the architect pack 1 and continue the conversation here. But a good technique is let's just go on to start a new architect conversation. And I'll just show you this. So I'll start a new session in Claude Code, and I will hit architect again, /architect again, and it's going to read all the architect briefing. It's going to bring itself up to speed separate from this architect conversation. I'm just showing you. Now, if you wanted to continue in this one architect pack, you probably could, but why not just start a new one? And I'm going to rename this. I'll call it architect. I'll say pack 002. And then we will group this into the appropriate project. And you see I'm in this same project here, architect pack 002. Now, going back to the project launcher, if we can refresh, redetect it again, and notice right here it updates on my current project that I'm in, the one I'm looking at. It said the sprint is closed. Take it back to your architect, which is exactly what we're doing here. Next step, /architect, which is what I am. So you can see that this mission control keeps you up to date where you're at. You can read your architect pack here. There was the 001. Here was the 001 sprint, the acceptance criteria, the blueprint, the requirements, everything else. And so now what it's doing is this architect pack 002 is reading everything, bringing itself up to speed, and then do some discovery with me to create architect pack 002. And so now notice the architect read all the files. He says, here's where we are. You've built a tool that turns this. Here's the method. Today we're choosing the next sprint. He's giving some ideas what he thinks the next sprint can be. Where's your head at? We can finish 002. So anyway, you would just read this, and when you're ready to generate pack 2, you would say generate pack 2. It would do that. And then when you're ready to start the build session, you would start a new session, and you would make sure you were in your right folder, and you would just type /build. And again, you would go, and I haven't written the pack here, but so it's not going to find it. So But once it writes pack 2, you just repeat that process back and forth. Now, the only thing that I didn't have in here is when you're done with the builder, I'd always write the code to GitHub, and but we can talk about that later. But anyway, the sense is, and when you're done with these packs, you can always archive them and you get them off your screen if you want. And so it's up to you. But I would just archive them and then just go from here and then just rename, call it whatever you want. But it just, for me, I would just keep it separate with what I was working on. And anyway, move to the right group. And that's how I work. And so it, if you look back here at the mission control, you can see the sprint is closed. We were on 001. You can look at the documents here. You can look at the architect briefing here on where things stand. So this was the last architect briefing. So again, everything is all in here. You can read it. It's on the project launcher. In the how-to section, again, this is just a place for, I'll have the walkthrough video here as well, but this goes step by step on what this video does. Fill out the intake, download the zip, put in there, unzip it, and then use your coding tool if you want to, and do /architect in Claude Code. If it's in Codex, copy this prompt. And then when you're ready to build, in the same coding tool, /build, if you're using Claude Code, if it's Codex, you can copy this prompt and you can start from there. And you just go back and forth, communicating with the architect and the builder like you've seen me do in the past. And then on approval, when the builder does it, writes a sprint, copy that, take it back to the architect, get the approval, get that second set of eyes, take it back to the builder and close it out. The builder will write the architect briefing. You can go back to the architects, continue that conversation or start a new one, whatever you want to do. And it just makes it that much more clean. So I hope you enjoy the improvements. This is much better than what we had before. And I'm excited to see what you build. We got about 100 people who have purchased the product. And so I'm excited to hear what you all are building. If you still want to do it the old way, you can go in here and prepare the architect workspace, just like you've done in the past. You can download those MD files, put it in your Claude project or your ChatGPT project, and the same with the custom instructions. You can still do it that way. Just be advised that you have to manually tell that what's going to help you is you can tell that architect when the sprint is done, tell it to read the architect briefing file that is sitting in your planning folder. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can always email me at ray@120x.ai. Thanks.